Hello friends and lovers, my name's Haelian and I'm a huge Hades nerd, and I'm here to rank all of the Hades 2 keepsakes on your traditional tier list, as you can see here. We're going to go through each one and talk about the different use cases they have, and I guess we're going to rank it based on how useful they are in general and how good they are at that specific thing that they might do, because a lot of them are really specific. But yeah, we got a lot to do, so let's get into it. To start ourselves off, we have Silver Wheel. This is from Hecate. After you use magic, restore it over 3 seconds up to a total of 2,000 this night. Now, 2,000 magic, it's a lot. So basically, this can act as your way to regen magic if you don't have a magic regen boon. Now, the question is this ever really worth picking up your keepsake slot when you could just have a magic regeneration boon instead? That would probably do the same thing if you make your choices wisely. It just kind of seems like overkill, and there's better keepsakes than this, you know? Because you can't go the entire run without getting a magic regen boon if you need the magic. Like, 2,000 isn't enough really for the whole run, so most likely, you know, it kind of depends on what you're doing. I think when I first started the game, I found some occasional uses for it, but once I had all the keepsakes, like, I just never, ever use this thing. I just never use it, because you're just gonna need that magic regen sooner or later, so when does this get used? I guess it would be early on in the run, but then there's too many other better keepsakes in it. I'm sorry, Hecate, but I just don't really see many use cases, and just being the fact that it's something that you can get earlier than some others, I don't think that really makes it any better. Therefore, Hecate, I think you gotta start off in D, hun. Next, we got those Knuckle Bones. The next Guardian loses minus 15% health. You take minus 15% damage from Guardians. By the way, these are all, we're just judging them on rank 3 since they're all rank 3 here. It's okay, I think. I don't know. It's interesting. It's only the next Guardian that loses the health, so you'd probably only want to use this for one biome. So you can use it against Kronos. He will lose 15% of his health. It's like a few seconds in, interestingly, into the fight where it actually triggers, which is fascinating. I'm not certain why that happens. And then you take 15% less damage from the bosses themselves. That's what a Guardian is, by the way, of course. It's okay. It certainly has its uses. It's not terrible. I think it kind of just gets a little outclassed by some other ones personally, at least for me, but it's certainly not bad. In terms of what I think of a ranking, oh, I think it's a B. I think it's okay as a B. Yeah, I think it's fine. It has its uses here and there. It might be the best in some scenarios. It kind of just depends on your build and the enemies. Yeah, it depends on a lot of things. But yeah, it's fine at B. Next, we got the Luckier Tooth. After you fall to 0 health, automatically restore 101 health once this night. I actually used this a lot when I first started playing the game, before I had Morose's Pin, which we'll get to later on, wherever that may be. I actually did use it a lot. It's basically an extra Death Defiance. It is at the start of your Death Defiances, so it gets used last. If you have 3 Death Defiances, you'll use all 3 of those first, and then you'll use the Tooth. If it was in the front, it would probably be better. It's pretty good. I think it's okay. I think it's gotten slightly outclassed by a couple other defensive ones, or at least one other. Even like Knuckle Bones is kind of competing with it. I think I do like Luckier Tooth and Knuckle Bones, though, personally. It's kind of hard to describe. I mean, you get that last hit protection, I guess you can describe it as. You know, the boss might have, like, overkilled you for the Lucky Tooth, and therefore, you know, you might have absorbed a little bit of extra damage that way. It's a tough one to rank. I think it falls under B, but still above the Knuckle Bones. Yeah, I think that's pretty good. Next, we got Ghost Onion. Whenever you exit a location, fully restore your health up to 100 health this night. I kind of feel like 100 is not that much. I think that's one thing. So you'd probably use this up for one zone, right? When you use it. Okay, I'm gonna be honest. I've barely used it. You know, I've barely used this thing. It just doesn't seem great. Like, you put it on at the start of a zone, and you're probably near full health when you're leaving, right? It's certainly not terrible. It's just a weird defensive, and I feel like there's better ones. So if you're at low health when you're leaving the boss, you still have to use the fountain, and that's going to restore some amount of health for you, you know? So you don't usually need this to, like, really top you up. But at the same time, it's not a bad option. I recognize it's not a bad option, it's just not very exciting, and I'm not certain how often you're going to use it. I think it's a good one for C. Next, we got Evil Eye. Deal plus 30% damage to the last foe that vanquished you, currently a wastrel, apparently. Yeah, this one gets talked about a lot, that's for sure. I think a lot of people have grand ideas around it, how, oh, you could set it up for Chronos, and you're always going to deal plus 30% damage against Chronos if you died to him one of the times, the last time you died or whatever. It's not by death defiance. Some people have that mistake, that mistakenness around it, where if you just lost a death defiance to an enemy, then that's what Evil Eye is set to. No, 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 no. You have to have died to it. And it's only 30%. It's just not that much when we compare to some of the later keepsakes that we'll see. It's terrible, if I can be quite honest. You deal extra damage, not even a lot, to one particular enemy, and sometimes that enemy could be a basic mob that you run into a good amount, I guess. But it's just awful. Could I be quite honest? It's just awful. Some people have grand ideas around setting it up for like the speed run and dying to Chronos on purpose, so you deal 30% more damage to him. But the thing is, there's other keepsakes that just do that even better, and it doesn't require this elaborate setup. It's wild, honestly. I think it has even less uses than Silver Wheel. That damage just needs to be way, way higher, and I don't know. I think it needs something else on top of that. I don't know. They could probably up the damage and have it do something else on top of what we already see here in order to make it usable. Because right now, I can't think of any particular time. Like some people say, oh, to get past this one particular boss, you could use it. But then why not just use Luckier Tooth? Why not use Knuckle Bones? Why not use so many other ones that we'll eventually get to? Like, I don't think Evil Eye is it. If you're stuck on a boss, Evil Eye isn't going to help you get past it. A defensive keepsake will, trust me. All right, Engraved Pin. After you fall to 0 health and become impervious for 10 seconds, if no foes remain, restore 60 health. This one's really interesting. So you can use it once per location too. So it's kind of like a weird Stubborn Defiance from Hades 1 if you want to look at it that way. So you go to 0, you go back up to like, you go back up to 60 health right away when you hit 0, and then you get the 10-second countdown and you're impervious the whole time. If you clear the chamber, you keep that 60 health. If you don't clear the chamber in that time and there's still enemies left, you lose the Death Defiance, I guess, is as far as I understand it. But it is really good, you know? It is actually quite good. It is quite useful. It's also good, like, even though you might say, oh, well, that sounds kind of hard to make sure you clear the room in that time, but you can trigger it on purpose to recover health at the end of a chamber is one of the bigger things here. So if you're down to like 10 health, you're like, oh man, I'm about to lose my Death Defiance. And you get it down to just one enemy, you can just make sure that enemy pops it for you. You go back up to 60, boom. It's quite nice. I think it's actually the best defensive one, maybe one of the best defensive ones you can have on here. I think that's good for our first S, I think, right now. Next, we have the Discordant Bell. After each encounter, you deal plus 1% damage, but also take that much more. This one's from Eris. I did a run with this one recently. I started with it. I played the whole run through with it. After we beat Chronos, we had plus 35% damage. Delta and taken. It has gone awful. So the big problem it has, again, like we're kind of going to get to these keepsakes a little bit later on. It's a glass cannon keepsake. That's what it's supposed to be, right? There's a strictly better glass cannon keepsake coming up from Artemis. It starts off slow. You get nothing from it right away, right? You don't get the full bonus until the very end, but also there's a pretty big downside to it as well. And it's just not that much, you know what I mean? Is it better than Evil Eye? I don't even know. I think it's just too little. I think it could be an interesting keepsake, but it should really, like, I'm fine with the fact that we take more damage, but make it like really punchy, you know? Make it really interesting. Make it at 3% each, you know? Make us really feel that extra damage that we could be taking, and let us feel the extra damage we're going to be dealing. Because right now at 35% by the end of the run, like, you kind of don't even notice it, you know what I mean? They're just better offensive keepsakes, like strictly better. Whether it's worse than Evil Eye or not, I guess it is, because there's a downside, honestly. There's just no point to using Discordant Bell. It requires you to have it on the entire run to get the bonus. You lose the bonus if you take it off. And it's just not enough. At any point in the run does it feel like it is giving you enough compared to what the other keepsakes could be giving you. It's terrible. Next, we got the Gold Purse. Gain a plus 150 gold once this night. It's just kind of you know what I mean? 150? It's really not that much. I'll be honest. I never use it. It's not really because it's the worst keepsake, but more so just because it's not as good as other keepsakes. That's one of the nice things in the game, is that it feels like we have a lot more interesting and useful keepsakes compared to Hades 1, which means that when they brought a keepsake from the first game over to this one, it doesn't feel as good, right? It's just like I can't imagine needing or wanting it very often, but there are times, I suppose there are times. I'm starting to think, like, after I'm looking at some of these things, maybe Silver Wheel needs to get bumped up. You know what? I'm gonna do it now. Silver Wheel's gonna get bumped up, baby, because nothing's getting in the top bracket right now, I think, or at least not as much. Silver Wheel, congratulations. All right, up next we got Metallic Droplet from Hermes. You move, strike, and channel 20% faster for the next 300 seconds. It's interesting that they give you a time limit on it, right? I guess it's thematic with Hermes, though. You move, you strike, and you channel 20% faster. I think that channel is actually the most important bit most of the time. 20% faster channel speed is, you feel that. It feels quite nice. And it should last for the vast majority of the zone. I think when I have it on, and usually I try to play quite quickly if you've watched, you know, it tends to run out around the time of the boss, I'll be honest. So it would be nice if it was a bit longer, I guess, you know what I mean? But it is pretty good. I like it. I do put it on fairly regularly. You'd want this with anything where you're spamming a lot of Omega moves, but even then, like, the faster strike speed is pretty good too. It's just that timer that kind of bogs it down. I think that makes it a little bit more questionable. I still think it's worthy of A, because I find myself wanting and needing it fairly regularly. You know, it's a good third or maybe fourth biome keepsake if you're feeling confident, but yeah, I kind of like it. Next up, we got White Antler. While you have no more than 30 health, not 30% health, you have plus 40% chance to deal critical damage. So you have to be at or under 30 current health, and you can fix or rig the game to where you have just simply 30 max health out of the gate and it never goes up. That is a possibility, although not easy. And then that way you just get 40 passive crit chance. 40% passive crit chance. It's insane. It is the strongest offensive keepsake we have in the game. It works immediately. Compare this to Discordant Bell, right? Which you have to work for to get the bonus up. You got to leave it on for a long time. You get White Antler immediately. And you might even argue that the downside isn't as bad as Discordant Bell, where you're slowly racking up more and more damage taken. I don't know. You could argue both ways. The point is that, like, this is just so much better. You deal so much more damage up front, therefore you're going to take a lot less damage that way too. This is the keepsake that speedrunners are abusing to the utmost. It is pure insanity. It's all you really need practically in terms of that. If you haven't tried that out, I highly recommend, even though it might not go great for you, you know, it might not go great for you if it's your first time trying to force yourself to be at only 30 health, right? You might have a good time though. Trust me out. Trust me on this one. You're gonna have to try it. I mean, for its use case in dealing a lot of damage, and it does see quite a bit of use in, you know, the realm of Hades players. I think it has to be worthy of S here. It is definitely the best offensive keepsake. Now, there is an argument here, like, you know, Dan, this isn't going to be used by casual players all that often. You know, doesn't really make sense to put it in an S. And I guess for that, all I can say is I don't know. All right, Moonbeam. You gain plus 3 upgrades for your hex from the next path of stars you find. My main problem with this keepsake, I mean, there's a lot of issues here. But my main problem is that I just don't know if and when I'm going to get that path of stars, you know? I wish this gave it to you immediately, and then I think it would actually be okay. But the fact that you have to wait for the next path of stars makes it kind of wishy-washy, you know? I don't know if I'm even going to see another path of stars. There's also just the core issue that the hexes are just not in a great place in the game right now. I don't think they're power level or where they need to be at a base. You can get them to a decent place with these path of stars. Is it worth putting a keepsake on for? Probably not. It might depend on the hex you get. And yeah, it's just hard to kind of thoroughly build around. They're fun to use and everything, but are they good? I wouldn't describe it as that. So I think that's the main issue with it, is the fact that you're kind of gambling on even seeing the path of stars, and the fact that the hexes are just not that strong currently in the game as is. Therefore, I think we got another D in our hands, but honestly, I would probably find a better use for this in case I wanted to go for a quirky hex build. You know, I think I might see myself using this just to try to do something different in the game, you know, whereas Evil Eye and Discordant Pal, yeah. All right, and now I've lumped all of the god keepsakes into one because they all do the same thing. They guarantee a boon from the particular god the next time you're gonna get a boon offered, I guess you could say, and then you can rarefy, in case you don't know, you can rarefy a boon up to the next rarity. So you can make an epic boon heroic in case you're not aware. If they are rank 3, or common into rare, or rare into epic. You cannot go above heroic though. So how good are the god keepsakes? Because they all just are independent for their respective god, but they all do the same thing, you know? So I think it's fair to kind of rate them all the same, more or less. I mean, we could sit here and argue that one god might be better or worse than another, but it's not really worth getting into that in a tier list like this. I think the answer is my heart wants to tell me S, because I use them pretty much every single run. You know, it doesn't matter what I'm doing. These god keepsakes are gonna get used. They're gonna get abused. The fact that you can control what god you can see is part of the real treasure behind Hades in some way, because you can decide what you want to do ahead of time in a run. You know, I want to try a run with this dual boon. So you put on a god keepsake to start, then you put on another god keepsake for zone 2, and hopefully things work out, you know. Sometimes they don't. And I think it's really important to the game, to be honest. So in terms of ranking, I think they just gotta go S. You know, I think they have to be S. You know, I really want to like flesh out the A for some stupid reason, but yeah, it's just too good to be able to control the god that you see, and just that way you know what you can put on your attack or your special or your cast right away, and you know you can have a good run by guaranteeing one particular one. It does mean it's a little less, I guess, roguelike-y in its own sense, but it's the Hades franchise, I guess, you know? Up next, we got Lion Fang from Heracles. Deal plus 50% bonus damage, but lose 5% of this after each encounter. So I think if you put this on in Tartarus, you'll be down to around 25% when you reach Chronos if you don't take any additional chambers, you know? So how good is it? It's okay, you know? I think it's okay. Yeah, I mean, you can put it on for any zone, and it's okay, you know? The problem is, you don't want the damage at the beginning of each zone, typically, right? You want it at the end for the boss, which is the only downside here. But by the end of each, it's not the worst. It's not that bad. There are better offensive keepsakes. Is it A? No, I don't think so. I do use it. I do use it on occasion, but not very often. Yeah, I think it's a solid B. Maybe it belongs in A. I don't know. Nah, B sounds about right for it. Blackened Fleece, after you take 250 damage, your Omega moves a deal plus 40% damage. Okay, so Blackened Fleece plus 40% Omega move damage. I like it. I do like it. I think the bonus is correct. My problem with it is that oftentimes I'm just not at 250. I know it's a brag or whatever. But I mean, a lot of runs, I'm just not at it, you know? So I can't actually use the keepsake. How do we meet in the middle here? Because I want that damage bonus, you know what I mean? I want that damage bonus. But taking 250 on purpose is kind of hard. I don't know. I think it's good. But then you can't put it in S because it might not work for you all the time, you know what I mean? But at least I guess you get to know ahead of time. So you can just decide to not put it on. I would probably use it more often. I guess I'm going to leave the droplet ahead of it. I would use it more often if it was active more often. But yeah, I like the additional mega damage. Crystal Figurine. After the next Guardian, activate one random rank 3 Arcana card from Circe. Ah, God. So, yeah. Don't come at me with the whole, oh, what if it activates Judgment and then you get a bunch of Arcana cards from Judgment, blah, 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 blah. What are the odds of that? You know what I mean? Like, are you really gambling your run on that? I mean, I guess it's fun. I guess it's a fun keepsake. I guess it's quirky. I don't think it's good though. I don't think I've used it like, you know, the bare minimum here. It's just too rolling the dice and hoping for something good. I mean, most of the Arcana cards help you out in some way or another, but I don't know. I just don't find myself ever that excited for whatever it activates. I'm just kind of like, oh, all right. I mean, I guess it does more. I mean, it's certainly not a D. I can give it that. It's certainly not a D. I guess I get annoyed at it because of the randomness behind it. You know what I mean? I could see it having more uses than Silver Wheel for me personally. I don't know. Maybe I'm being a little harsh on it because I'm a little disaffectionate to judgment runs where you're, again, just rolling the dice on what you're going to get for your Arcana cards, right? Like, I really don't want to gamble on Crystal Figurine, like, making the run work, if that makes sense. You know, like, this run's going terribly. Crystal Figurine's going to turn it around. I just don't want to have to do that. Silken Sash. Gain plus 20 armor. While you have at least one armor, you gain plus 4 after each location. This is a pretty good defensive here. I like Silken Sash. I especially like it if you get a particularly useful reward from Arachne in Erebus, like plus 100% cast damage, and then you throw in, and assuming you can like kind of aim your build towards casts, right, and cast damage, then you throw on Silken Sash and you get to keep that bonus. That's big. That's big, right? That's cool. That's fun. That feels like, even though it's kind of a narrow example of use, I think just having something like that as an option, it just feels fun to me, you know? I think it's a fun keepsake at the least. I do think it's pretty good. I think it's pretty decent. It just sucks real bad if and when you drop to 0 on that armor, you know what I mean? And then it suddenly feels like it's doing nothing for you, but you always have the option to take it off after that. I'm kind of torn on this one because I'll admit I probably haven't actually used it as much as I'm talking it up. Maybe because I haven't had enough runs where I'm aiming for the specific thing. But even if you get faster channel speed from Arachne, it's 40%, right? The problem I run into is that a lot of times after Erebus, right after we've seen Arachne, you know, there's just so many other keepsakes I want to put on. And so I'm finding it hard to find a place for Silken Sash. But I think I can acknowledge, even though I might not use it as often, I think it is worthy of a pretty high tier here. Next is Aromatic Phial. Fountains restored plus 20% health. The next makes one random common boon of yours heroic. This is one where I have used it a lot. I still use it on occasion, not as much anymore, I think I would say, because I just love the idea of manipulating the game to where, all right, I'm going to take this common boon on purpose and I'm going to make it heroic in the next zone transition, you know? And it just makes you feel like a big boy when you pull that off or something, you know? So how good is it though? Gosh, how strong is it? It just really depends. This is one of those things that some runs it'll be incredibly useful. Some runs it will just be useless. You can't use it. And then therefore you're just not gonna put it on. So, but when you do put it on, you know what you're doing probably, right? Like you probably have one common boon in mind that you want to hit. Hopefully it's the only common boon you got. So it's an interesting one, right? Because you're just not going to use it if it's not going to help you. And if it is going to help you, then it's going to do a lot. Huh. This is a fascinating case. Because Aromatic Phial is never bad. At worst case, you just don't use it. You use a different keepsake that does more, right? You wouldn't put it on when it's going to do something bad. Huh. Ooh, that's fascinating to me. Because there's a lot of good keepsake options where you just put them on for like one zone at a time is the best way I can describe it. And I think there's a lot of decent times where Aromatic Phial can be used, both on the surface and in the underworld. I think it's not S. I'm going to call it A. I'm going to put it above Silken Sash right about there. That feels pretty good to me. Concave Stone. After choosing a boon, 75% of the time, randomly take one more once this night. So the next boon when you get, there's a 75% chance that the game will simply take another boon at random that's being offered here. There's an issue with this one, which is that it could kind of screw you. You know, it might take you something that you really just didn't want. Like it could actually have a negative effect on you in some way, you know? Not super often, but it can happen. It doesn't affect hammers or anything. I don't find myself using it. You know, I did use it from time to time. I don't love it though. It's only got to happen once. How worth it is it to get one more random boon? Sometimes it is. Sometimes it's not. Feels like a B to me. I don't think it's D. I don't think it's a D, right? Yeah, it's got its uses. Is it better than Knuckle Bones? I think it's a little better than Knuckle Bones. I think it has some uses here and there. Experimental Hammer. Gain one random hammer that lasts for 20 encounters. If you put this on in morning fields, I believe it should last till the end of Tartarus if you don't take 1,000 chambers in Tartarus, I'm guessing. One random hammer. I mean, it's fun, right? I mean, that thing is fun. You can't deny it. It's fun. The thing is, you know, like, there's usually like a 50-50 chance-ish that it's going to do something for you, is the way I look at it. Either it works or it doesn't, you know what I mean? No, but seriously, usually in a run, you're focusing on either your attack or your special. Rare occasions on your cast, right? But it's usually your attack or your special. In most hammers, they either affect your attack or your special. Sometimes it's like just your Omega attack, or just your regular attack, or just your Omega special, blah, blah, blah. But, you know, like, I don't know, it might narrow down to about like a 50-50. It just really depends on the weapon, the aspect, etc., etc., etc. I think it's one that I shouldn't use very often, but I probably use it more often than I should. You know what I mean? Because of the fun aspect, you know? Because of the fun aspect. You're really gambling with it, though. There are some hammers that might break your build, too, but you just gotta know ahead of time, like, I really shouldn't use it this run because it's not gonna go well, right? Oh, boy. Where should this bad boy go? I'm not sure. Does it really belong in A just because it's fun? Yeah. Yeah, get it up there, Icarus. Yeah, you got this. Last but certainly not least, Transcendent Embryo. Gain a random epic chaos blessing. Once this night, every encounters you replace it. So if you have this on and you go through 8 encounters, it'll replace whatever boon you initially got from chaos from this with just a new chaos boon, basically. If you take this keepsake off, then you will get to keep the chaos boon, which is probably the most important part here. And while you are really gambling on getting something useful, there's a pretty good chance. I mean, max health, max magic, channel speed, magic regen, attack damage, special damage, like the list goes on. Like magic consumption, sprint speed. I mean, sprint speed probably not as useful as some of the other ones there, but there's just like so many useful things chaos could give you. Yeah, there's a few duds out there. There's a few duds. And it might not match with your build, but I find myself throwing this on in either Zone 2 or Zone 3, just like super, super often. And yeah, it only probably hits something useful for me, maybe, I don't know. It's probably at least half the time, you know? It just feels so good to hit it. I think it's S. I think it's an S. Show me S right above there. Beautiful. There you go. There's our tier list, everybody. I hope you enjoyed it. I'll have a link in the description if you want to make your own. By all means, have some fun with it. This was mostly for fun. It's not really for advice for the game, you know. I'm just kind of curious what other people think of the keepsakes. And who knows, maybe I missed some stuff. Maybe I missed some use cases for some of them. If you've had a good Discordant Bell run, let me know somehow, you know. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. Like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.